So, namaste and welcome to all to the Bhagavad Gita study class. Today we will focus on the 18th chapter. The name of the 18th chapter is Devotion as regards to renunciation and final liberation, also known as Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. So, a very quick summary of the previous meeting would be that we touched upon Kshetra Kshetrajna, the spirit and matter aspect, and also we also touched upon what are the main aspects, the qualifications for this yoga for the student aspirant, and what are the four phases or kind of a roadmap for walking on this path of or practicing this yoga and acquiring the realization regarding kshetra and kshetrajna and the practical applications which are there. Now, today, as we said, we will begin with chapter 18. Chapter 18 is one of the is known to be commonly known to be one of the best and very famous chapters of Gita. It is the longest and very dense chapter, since there are total 78 shlokas or verses, and we will need to go through most of these verses in order to see and understand what's happening, and we'll see how much we can cover in this meeting, or perhaps if we need a couple of more meetings regarding the same. Now, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, the initial second chapter was a summary in perspective, wherein chapter 18 is a summary in retrospective. So once you have heard Lord Krishna and Arjuna's dialogue all through the 17th chapter, then it becomes the core summary in retrospective of the whole discussion. And it touches upon most of the core ideas and elaborates on that, which were provided in the initial chapters. And it adds more emphasis where previously there was none. It provides more crystal clear thoughts that give great clarity on certain topics, particularly to the topic of renunciation. Because we realized when we started in the initial discussions, we touched upon a very important topic, which is death, disease, and people shun away from it. But that's the fact of life, because that's the only reality of this life, that this body is temporary. We, the soul, was never born, or we will never die because we were never born. So we are pure consciousness. But we, at the end of the day, associate ourselves with this body and get stuck with this body. So the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita, one of the core ideas, is to come out of this suffering. And we started from there. And this chapter actually culminates all the ideas, all the practices, and provides the end-to-end connecting view of all the knowledge which Lord Krishna provided and how it can be practically applied in life. And that is very important, and that is why this chapter is very well known and famous. Also, earlier in the initial chapters, Lord Krishna was thinking from the perspective of Arjuna, because he understand his situation, and was guiding Arjuna. But then in the later chapters, and especially in this one, Lord Krishna takes the stand of a world teacher, wherein he is guiding the whole world uh, to the actual final goal which each one of us need to reach or achieve. Because in every cycle, it is said, in fact, even if you see the planetary cycles, it is said that if that cycle does not produce a Buddha, then it is known as Shunya. Shunya means zero in Sanskrit. So similarly, if you take our life from childhood till whatever age we are having this body, if we have not achieved that realization, or to whatever degree which is required by the soul or the higher self for us to achieve, then that life becomes shunya, that is zero. It is not accounted for, or it is like null. Even though we have achieved, definitely everyone achieves a set or a lot of realizations. But then if the ultimate goal is not achieved, then it's shunya. So this chapter actually points out to how we can make best use of our life practically. Now, it elaborates 7 topics which are based on 3 gunas. And 3 gunas we are aware of, that is sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Now, when the new system or a new world manifests after Mahamanvantara, Prakriti, which is Shuddha Sattvic, gets agitated by that one ray, which we also call it divine eros. The desire arose in that, or it, and it agitates, uh, or sort of a spanda, which is known as, which is actually vibration. Spanda is a Sanskrit word. A vibration arises, a spiritual quality, a spiritual vibration. Then in the Prakriti, there are the 3 gunas which arise, and everything is then in the differentiated or manifested universe based on this 3 gunas. And Lord Krishna is guiding us that make use of the knowledge of these 3 gunas and apply it on all levels. And then he says that Tyaga, which is renunciation, is of 3 types. And similarly, we have karma, how actions must be performed, of 3 types. And then we have jnana of 3 types, which is the knowledge or understanding, or the right understanding, how we need to interact and deal in the world. And then even karma, if you see what actions must be performed, we need to understand based on our situation of life. What's the most appropriate action in the context of our duty which we need to perform? But then each one of us, depending on our viveka or discrimination or understanding, for the same situation, we may react or we may perform in a different, slightly different way, or a similar way. That happens because our prakriti, the upadhi in which we are, and even our manas is actually prakriti of a subtle kind, has these gunas. These gunas lead us to a particular decision or an approach or a thought process. And we think we are the doer, but in fact, it's the light of the Atman which is sustaining, activating, propelling these gunas. And the confusion arises that I am the doer, this is my life, this is my situation, this is my problem, this is my pain, this is my suffering. And then, based on the gunas, we perform disharmonious or less harmonious actions, and our knowledge regarding what should be done. So, sometimes in life, there is a dilemma situation. Should I do this or should I do that? If I do this, this repercussion may happen, or this series of events may happen, and likewise, the other set of events may happen if I take another decision. So, what is the right decision? So, how to apply the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in such situations? And Karta, how should one realize that we are not the doers of the action while performing the action? Buddhi, again, as you know, is the discriminating power, Viveka, and how should we think right, wrong ways, which we just discussed. Dhriti is again exercising the willpower in dealing with the situations in the right way or the other way. And Sukham is what is healthy and what is unhealthy happiness, what is the right attitude in one way. And then this whole chapter starts with this initial shloka, wherein Arjuna says that, "O mighty armed Krishna, I wish to understand the nature of sannyasa, that is, renunciation of actions, and tyaga, renunciation of desire for the fruit of action." And then he says, "Oh Rishikesha, I also wish to know the distinction between the two." And then he says, again calls Lord Krishna as Keshni Sudha. So we see that uh, here actually we are being sort of forewarned with the some exceptions, and we are being highlighted about something which is very important, which is about to be um, provided by Lord Krishna to us. So there are three different names which Arjuna uses to identify or refer to Lord Krishna, and each has a different spiritual meaning. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, as we discussed in our first meeting, that we need to do some homework, wherein while we are studying the Bhagavad Gita, we need to make notes that Arjuna is referred to by so many names. One place he is known as Partha, other place Konteya, other place something else. Similarly, Krishna is referred to as with various names, and the other main characters of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Each of this name is a blind actually, and it has got a spiritual significance, and it provides more clarity on the context. So if we see here, three names are there. Mahabaho, which means mighty armed, and it refers to his Vishwarupa form also. And in the previous discussions, we saw the Vishwarupa and the various context and the various perspectives of the divine form, how we can understand. So there was one aspect which was the Virat form, or the form in which uh, we saw the page 200 diagram and the various aspects. The other form is the formless. So Mahabhav would be mostly related to the one with form, and Rishikesha, consciousness which propels the senses. So the senses itself, it is said that each sense of ours has a set of deities associated with that. Now, you can think of those deities as elementals also, but those deities are responsible for that sense, and the consciousness which propels those senses is Rishikesha. So it's one another aspect of that one being or one pure consciousness, which is expressing through the senses as Rishikesha. And Keshini Sudan is actually the destroyer of Keshini. Keshi or Keshini was a demon who took the form of a horse and tried to attack Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna killed him by splitting his body into two. So again, this is a blind. So in one way, if you see, our mind also oscillates. One goes running towards the senses, the other has some sense and looks towards the higher or the Buddhic aspect. But depending on which one is more powerful or more active, and how the gunas are working, that is these three gunas, and how the skandhas are working on the manasic plane based on the color which we have given or the tendencies which we have provided in the previous lives. We have the operation of the mind happening in this particular incarnation. But Lord Krishna says, I am Keshini Sudan, wherein I have that capability to actually destroy your lower part, the lower manas, or the rather the kama manas, and only keep the higher aspect or the higher manas or buddhi manasic aspect active. So that is again another hint provided to us. But also, if we see the previous shloka which we just read, there is a differentiation hinted between sannyasa and tyaga. And there is some doubt which originates in the mind about exactly what these words mean. So sannyasa we saw is renunciation of action. In Tyaga is renunciation of desire for the fruits of action. Now, if you do complete renunciation of action, then how will you live? Because you need food to survive. In order to have food, you need to work for it to get the money. You need a roof to live, and so on and so forth. So you cannot have complete sannyasa, that is renunciation of all actions. And at the same time, we understand that you don't need to have attachment to the actions or fruit of actions. You are doing a renunciation of the same. But actually, these terms are used interchangeably in the entire Bhagavad Gita. And in this context, Sri Shankaracharya mentions in one of his bhasyas or commentaries that he doesn't give more attention to the differentiation between the word sannyasa and tyaga because he considers both as same. In the sense that not having attachment to the action and also to the fruit of action, just performing of duty. But on the other hand, he differentiates further the renunciation aspect. He says one aspect of renunciation is mukhya, which means primary or the higher order. And the guna attached with this is sattvic, the purest guna. And the second differentiation or type is gauna, which means secondary. And then the practice as a student, aspirant, or a sadhaka or a devotee happens when performing your devotion, you have a transition from a tamasic state to a sattvic state. Now, these are two extreme ends of the spectrum, and there can be a lot of variety or shades in this. So, every student in this journey will be starting from somewhere from extreme end of tamasic to the extreme other end of sattvic, and uh, slowly and slowly move towards sattvic. So, what will happen is ultimately all the practices and all the renunciations and all the yogas which we perform, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, will become sattvic. So the idea is that Tyaga is considered as every moment, every second of your life, you are doing renunciation. So you are like, let's say it begins by giving up your anxieties over the fruits of action, and then progresses on to renunciation of desire to the best of your ability or capability, and improving day by day, bit by bit, taking some baby steps. And it is in this context of the day-to-day practice that we are also giving up our likes and dislikes with the objective of attaining chitta shuddhi or purity of the mind, and then self-control, and so on and so forth. So every moment and every second of your life, you are performing this renunciation, this sacrifice, and ultimately it all becomes mukhya, because from tamasic you reach to sattvic. So what you are doing is consciously you are tuning your gunas from tamasic to sattvic, and then while doing that you are also performing sacrifice, and while doing that you are also performing all the yogas which are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So, Tyaga and Sannyasa are two important things which are working together. And then comes the second and third shloka, wherein Lord Krishna says, and this is from the rendition of WQJ, the bards conceive that the forsaking of actions which have a desired object is renunciation or sannyasa. The wise call the disregard of the fruit of every action true disinterestedness in action. By some wise men, it is said, every action is as much to be avoided as a crime. while by others it is declared deeds of sacrifice, of mortification, and of charity should not be forsaken. And that's why the confusion arises uh, uh, in terms of understanding the different meanings and options. So, from this sloka, we have the four different meanings and options which are arising. So, renunciation is giving up of actions prompted by desire. So, this says that renunciation, which are so actions which arise in your mind with the basis of desires need to be renounced. And it is said that there are two aspects to it. One is kamya, and other is nishida karma. So kamya means desire prompted, and nishida karma means forbidden actions. So the first category, we have all those actions propelled by desire need to be renounced. All those actions which are forbidden actions need to be renounced. Now, what are forbidden actions? Forbidden actions could be anything which is not morally, ethically correct, which is also creating a disharmony, and which is not appropriate in terms of creating trouble or disharmony or pain or suffering for others. So each one of us in during the journey of our life need to understand every moment of our life, what is it, am I doing an action which is prompted by my desire, or is it prompted by duty? Am I performing any action which is disharmonious to me because it is ethically and morally wrong or incorrect? Am I doing anything which is going to create disharmony in the whole universe because we are disconnected? Could be a wrong thought also, could be abusing somebody, could be getting angry, irritated, could be destructive emotions. Am I going to do something, or will my actions, whether mentally or physically, lead to suffering of someone else? Am I going to hurt somebody, or am I going to lead somebody into suffering? So that leads to self-awareness. Every moment we are making those decisions and doing the renunciation or the sacrifice. Then comes the second one, wherein all acts may be done as long as their fruits are abandoned. And again, they are related. So the very fact that fruits are abandoned means that the idea of desire propelled actions are abandoned, and forbidden actions are also abandoned at the same time. And at the same time, we are not getting attached neither to the action nor to the results of action. So when we say neither to the action, it is like you may think, okay, I know that I will not be attached to the results of the action, but I need to perform my action to the best manner possible. That is good. But then that reaches an extreme level wherein your mind is completely obsessed with this idea of performing the action to the most appropriate and best capability of yours, wherein you get attached to the action itself. So again, there is a fine line. So you have to perform your action to the best, but not get attached, and you're not even getting attached to the result. So there again, you're doing renunciation every moment, because these actions are both physical and mental. And again, they are propelled by the gunas. And then comes the idea that because they are propelled by gunas, there is always some possibility and always some defect there in the actions. Now, how these defects can be removed, and what is the method of removing this defect? Because we will not be able to perform the actions or thoughts uh, in a sattvic manner immediately, because we have a lot of other permutation of and combinations of the gunas. And then the fourth category is where others advise that one should abandon all acts except sacrifice. So how is that possible? But this implies the initial idea which we discussed, that everything needs to be fine-tuned on harmonious acts and the application or the arising of the sattvic gunas as the propelling force of those actions. Because if everything is then sattvic and you are doing the renunciation, then no karma is generated. So the other thing is that based on our previous life, we have a net of karma, which leads to cause and effect the future lives. From childhood till now, every moment, because of our thoughts, speech, and action, we are creating karma. So we have this net karma which led to this life, this kind of parents, this kind of body, this kind of attributes, this kind of mind, this kind of friends, situation, life, etc., learnings, realizations. But because of the disharmony in our thought, speech, and action, the actions which we are performing, we were attached to it. There was no renunciation, no sacrifice happening, and the false, deluded notion that I am this body, I am the doer, and so on and so forth, and all the teachings which we have understood, we realize that we have been creating so much disharmony since childhood till now, which has added more to the bank balance of all the previous life of karmas. And at the same time, there seems to be no way out of this uh, cycle of karma. So Lord Krishna says that, look, by while performing sacrifice in the way I have guided you, you can actually come out of this cycle of karmas, and you can rise above the karmas and not get stuck in the cycle of cause and effect and creating more karmas and adding to your bank balance of karmas. At the same time, you can also rise above these gunas, because that is the final um, uh, purpose of the whole teachings, that you have to rise above these gunas. And then we have the next sloka, which focuses on sloka 5, that action based on sacrifice, charity, penance should never be abandoned. They must be certainly performed. Indeed, acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are purifying. So, and they are even purifying to the wise ones. So, the whole idea is that not to add more and more to your bank balance of karma, not to create more disharmony, align yourself with the highest, purify your gunas, uh, depolarize, neutralize, or again raise or purify your skandhas, and at the same time, uh, do purification of your sheaths or your koshas, because our reality is that we are none of these bodies. We are the Atman itself. The light of Atman, when shining through these upadhis, these bodies, there is a side effect which is created, which is the I consciousness. So even if you are a great yogi and you reach at the level of buddhic plane where you are conscious there, or even the shores of the shoreless shore of Akshara, that is Atman, the I never leaves. There is a component of I there also. Unless and until you become merged with the Atman, the I will always remain. When the I remains, the delusion occurs that I am so and so and the whole world is different or separate. And the story of I starts. So the whole idea is that to come out of that, and at the same time, uh, uh, you need to understand how to come out of that. So the light of Atman will shine through all your upadhis and not get distorted. And you will see the reality only if each of your sheets, upadhis, vehicles is purified. Purified of what? Of the vasanas, the skandhas, the tendencies. That purification happens by performing all these yogas, the Bhakti Yoga, the Raj Yoga, and the Sankhya Yoga, the um, other yogas which we have discussed, especially the yoga of sacrifice also. So this purifying process is what we are doing while practically applying all these in our life. Now, uh, there are different stages of life. So you start with brahmacharya ashram, which is the stage in which you are going to sort of um, school and you are learning, and then from there you get into grahastha ashram, wherein you have a family, you make a family, and then you live with your family. And then once your family duties are over towards your children and your wife, you reach the Vanaspata ashram, or the stage of life, wherein then you are mostly focusing on uh, understanding the higher truths of life and trying to uh, reach more and more towards the realization of truths. And then at certain stage, you get into the sannyasa ashram, wherein you are actually completely focused on becoming one with the Atman and reaching higher and higher states, meditative states, and so on and so forth. So, at each stage of life, Lord Krishna says that there are different kinds of sacrifices which can be again performed, which are in alliance or in harmony with the duties which you need to perform in that ashram or stage of life. So he has mentioned about yagna, dana, tapas, and so on and so forth. And then comes the sixth shloka, which talks about, but even those works are to be performed after having renounced all selfish interest in them and in their fruits. This, O son of Prita, so here Arjuna is referred to as Prita, is my ultimate supreme decision. So finally, Lord Krishna says that yes, all this is fine, but the most important underlying aspect is that there has to be no single taint of selfishness, no selfish interest. Because you may think, okay, if I am in my um, grahastha ashrama family life, and if I perform my duties so and so, the life of my children will be so and so, and my family will be so and the future will be bright, and you have the whole roadmap and the dream in your mind. But then again, it's all selfish. So at every stage, and then you may say, okay, I have reached the final sannyasa ashram. Then if I perform so and so meditations, and then I'll know the truth and the absolute reality, and then I'll be the knower of truth, and I would have achieved something in this life, uh, and so your mind will think. But all these things are again selfish. So the Lord Krishna is trying to tell you from the very beginning that before even you start anything, be clear about your motive and your intentions, and realize that from the very first day, you realize that you are none of these bodies and you are that one pure consciousness. That one pure consciousness is reflected everywhere in many bodies and in everything. And you understand the difference between the Atman, the self, and the non self. Everything which is non self is temporary, everything which is self, which is only one, is permanent, which is the substratum. Once you truly realize this to whatever degree you can to start with, then automatically what will happen is every selfish interest will go away, or what will remain in life is only your duty. The performance of duty will remain, and it will reach to a next level wherein you are just performing your actions. So two conditions given here represent the whole essence of karma yoga, which is abandoning attachment and abandoning the fruits of action, which we have seen. But then you have no selfish interest, your motive and intentions are clear, and you have a even or equal mindedness in your mind. And then he says the abstention from works which are necessary and obligatory is improper. The not doing of such action is due to delusion springing out of the tamas quality. So During life, what happens is certain times we abstain from performing our duties, or we think this is obligatory, or we think maybe this is not needs this needs not need not be done. So this proper discrimination is not there. Now this delusion which springs from the reason that you associate yourself with this seven bodies, you associate yourself with this action as in the doer of the action. You get deluded by the gunas, you get deluded by the tendencies. In this big delusion, you think that certain things should be performed, certain things should not be performed. But in reality, those things which you think should not be performed actually need to be performed. What is propelling you to do that is the tamasic guna. So we see that purification leads also to fine tuning your gunas from the far end spectrum of tamasic to the other end of sattvic. The more and more you do the sacrifice, and the more and more you lead your life, thought, speech, and action in harmony with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, as we saw from the beginning, what will happen is your gunas will fine tune to sattvic, and your vasanas or the tendencies or the skandhas will also depolarize, leading to purity of your sheaths, so that the light of the Atman can shine through, which is you yourself. So I'll pause here and we will take some contribution thoughts and ideas.